all that you need.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
We continue today on Lead Story to look into the affairs of the Prime Minister Andrew Holness as outlined in that report submitted to the Parliament by the Integrity Commission. Specifically today, we want to look at a few companies owned by the Prime Minister and the movement of cash between and amongst those companies. Also, that issue where a couple of those companies filed no tax returns to Tax Administration Jamaica, despite what the Integrity Commission said is evidence of financial activity in the accounts. I've asked a chartered accountant to break down the issues for me so that myself and you out there can understand the true state of affairs. That's the subject on Lead Story today. Let's start the show. Constant Spring Road in St. Andrew by evening, and the lights always make it a very, very pretty sight. And as we get to that part of the year where the night comes quickly, it will look even better when our cameras pan outside before the start of this segment of programming on CVM TV. Good evening, my name is George Davis. This is Lead Story. Now, the hot matter in the public domain concerns the Prime Minister's statutory declarations and the investigation into those with a view to certifying by the Integrity Commission. Of course, it hasn't certified yet because it says the investigation has not run its course. It has completed its part of the work, but it has made a recommendation that Tax Administration Jamaica TAJ and the Financial Investigations Division FID, that both those entities have a look at the Prime Minister's affairs, especially as it relates to the movement of cash across and between companies owned by the Prime Minister. And that segment of this voluminous report, 170 odd pages long, is what we want to spend the time today on Lead Story looking at. Now, by way of refresher, on Tuesday's show, we brought for you excerpts from the report just to show you what the Integrity Commission found, what it said were cause for what it identified as cause for concern or causes for concern where the Prime Minister's affairs are related. And today we are using pretty much the same slides, a selection of that bunch to make the case and lay it down and then invite our expert on the other end to really look into where it is sense lies in all of the numbers and the movements that we're seeing happen where the accounts are concerned. So if we may go with the first slide, Joel. Okay, so the Director of Investigation, who's the DI, yeah? He examined over 3,600 transactions in respect of approximately 28 bank accounts which either were or are presently associated with Holness. Yeah, then a number of witnesses, of course, provided information to assist the DI, the Director of Investigations, in that regard, and they were doing that investigation under Section 14.5 of the Corruption Prevention Act, and the requests for explanation were made of Mr. Holness for him to provide information to satisfy these queries, looking into 3,600 transactions across 28 bank accounts. It's needful to tell you this up front because some of the bank accounts that we're going to zero in on is among that clutch of 28. Now, the companies concerned, the companies around which the Integrity Commission has the most questions. One company, Imperium Investments Holding Limited. 2, Estate Bridge Development Company Limited. And 3, Positive Media Solutions Limited. Those are the 3 companies that the Integrity Commission says that transactions between and amongst them have caused it to have serious concerns about whether or not everything is above board where the Prime Minister's affairs are concerned. Let's go again. All right. It says based on the volume of transactions observed in the bank accounts and they referenced 3 companies, those 3 that we showed you on the previous slide. A forensic examiner that they hired from the United States, that examiner took approximately 6 months to complete his examination. So it was a man. He completed his examination in 6 months and submitted a report. That report said that nothing untoward was found. So the forensic examiner looked at the volume of transactions across the 3,800 transactions, 28 bank accounts. He looked at the 3 companies specifically that we referenced on the previous slide, and that forensic examiner told the Integrity Commission that nothing was there that aroused his suspicion. Let's go ahead. The report looked at a bond purchased by Andrew Holness for $94,000 US. I think the bank involved was NCB. The investigation found that only 61,800 plus of that sum was funded by Holness, with the remaining 32,000 plus coming from Positive Jamaica Foundation, one of the 3 companies that we are looking at, and a company that happens to be a charity where Holness is listed as a director. Again, Imperium, which is wholly owned by Prime Minister Andrew Holness as a holding company. Positive Media, which they say was initially set up by Holness for managing his public image. In 2022, the IC says, that's the Integrity Commission, Holness forfeited his shares in this company, and those shares which he forfeited were transferred to his son Andrew, with a friend of his, Mark Azan, as a shareholder. The overwhelming majority of shares are now held by Andrew Holness's son, Andrew Matthew, and Mark Azan has a minority shareholding in Positive Media, which initially was set up by Holness for managing his Holness's public image. Then Estate Bridge. The report does not explicitly state the ownership structure of Estate Bridge, but it is indicated that it is another company with connections to Andrew Holness. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Well, should we take the break and come with to look at the numbers and then we introduce our guest? Well, all right, I'm being told by my producer to crack on. All right, so Imperium received 70.129 million from Positive Media and returned 51.3 million, resulting in a net surplus of approximately 18.797 million. It says Estate Bridge, which deposited 44 million from Imperium, had a remaining balance of 40,669,000 after making significant withdrawals, including payments to Imperium. The reason we're laying these tiles out is because we want you to understand what the volume of money moved and across which companies the big sums were moved, sufficient to make you understand why the Integrity Commission believes that there may be something worth probing deeper where these accounts are concerned. Let's crack on. Positive Media now faced a net withdrawal, the IC said, of 18.855 million and showed signs of financial strain despite receiving 52.9 million in deposits. Then another company, Green Emerald, loaned 20.265 million to Positive Media and received 24.925 in transfers, resulting in an unexplained surplus of 4.3 million. Then the IC says, look, these 3 companies linked to Holness, Imperium, Positive Media, and Estate Bridge, between 2019 and 2022. And then it says, look, we found that a couple of these companies filed no tax returns, despite what the IC said was evidence of financial activity. Let's go again. For Imperium, where 2021 is concerned, that company had reported earnings of 5,121,000 Jamaican and change. The earnings were earnings from dividends, exchange gains, and interest to the tune of 5.121 million. Yet, the Integrity Commission is saying this company filed no taxes for the reporting period. Let's crack on. Positive Media and Estate Bridge reported earnings of 20.069 million for 2021, and yet for the tax period 2021-2022, there was no commensurate, no attendant tax filing. Let me withdraw the word commensurate because it is better than safer to say no attendant tax return, because the expert will tell us if there is a tax return that is commensurate with earnings to that magnitude in that year for the tax year that the earnings are related to. So those are the accounts and the movement of funds, and the fact of what the Integrity Commission says is no evidence of taxes being filed from those accounts, despite there being earnings reported for the accounts, that it says has caused it to ask the FID and Tax Administration Jamaica to look into those matters. Now, again, just by way of recap, what I'm saying to you, there's nothing that I'm going to give you on this show that is my opinion. I'm going strictly on what is written here in the Integrity Commission report. For what I've just showed to you, the Integrity Commission says it hired external expertise to look into those matters. The external expert, after spending 6 months, found nothing. But the IC says, well, we are taking this and referring it to Tax Administration Jamaica and the FID. There was a small matter, well, not a small matter, an important matter of the Integrity Commission writing to Parliament, asking Parliament to give the imprimatur, to give its rubber stamp, to recommending to both the FID and the Tax Administration Jamaica that this investigation proceed, that they look into these matters. The President of the Senate, Tom Tavares Finson, issued a view earlier on this Wednesday that has so far, up to the point we were coming on air, has not been challenged, to say that the Integrity Commission does not have any authority to ask Parliament to refer any investigation to proceed into any individual in the Parliament. That's one. And he says, furthermore, the Parliament itself does not have the power to instruct any authority to look into the financial affairs of any member. And he said, look, if that was the case and that power existed, then what would stop the majority party at any time in the life cycle of a parliament to use that majority to set state agencies after political rivals, right? So that is the situation there. That view has not been challenged yet. I'm not saying it's a supreme view. I'm just saying that it was put on the record today, and so far it has not been challenged. After the break, I'm going to speak with a gentleman, Tariq Abdul Majid. He is a chartered accountant, and he hopefully can shed some light onto what the Integrity Commission is looking at to advance our own understanding.
And get creative with your floors, walls, and all the spaces in between. Our knowledgeable sales consultants are happy to help create your beautiful finish with the latest designs in first quality porcelain, wood look, vinyl, mosaics, natural stones, and countertops. At Creative, you will get every tile you need for your residential or commercial projects. Creative Building Finishes, your one-stop shop for everything tiles. Visit our showroom at 5 Red Hills Road or call 876-929-5553. Get tiles, get creative.
Ray and Neve, feel we culture, yo!
New beginning, we winning, so share our spirit where you living, yeah.
Share it!
I make we all a one bar, you don't know we come from far.
From far, anytime we rap, feel we country. Rear rum, it have to come with me.
No matter with the bad vibes.
Poor rear rum, a celebration time. Rear rum,
I feel we culture.
Rear rum,
make we show ya. Jamaican culture.
Ray and Neve, overproof from what just a do to we culture.
As a fitness guy, I was surprised by my chronic illness diagnosis. I thought working out harder would fix it, but it wasn't enough. Now, my prescription meds are a part of my routine.
When I got my diagnosis, I really felt down and stopped spending time with the people I love. Then I decided not to let any disease get the best of me. And I'm committed to taking my meds as prescribed. On time, every time.
No hesitation. Take your medication. A message from the NHF. NHF is here for health. NHF is here for you.
Rise and shine and start your day with the Wealthy Club's Power Hour. It's a transformative mind-body workout infused with strength training, yoga, meditation, and journaling. Every Wednesday from 5:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. Join us for free, live in person right here at the marketplace in front of Camila's Kitchen, or you can join in from anywhere in the world thanks to our friends over at Just Create. And afterwards, refuel with your post-workout breakfast from Camila's Kitchen to truly support your wellness and your fitness goals. Catch us for this special workout hour on CVM TV on Mondays from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. and a repeat at 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Well Fit Wednesdays right here at the Marketplace. See you there.
When the food speeds, we dance. When the vibe nice.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
Welcome back to a lead story here on CVM TV. I know that the audience is discerning. I hope that I would not have left anybody behind in the context I tried to cast before the break, so that you are primed to understand what my guest is going to say about his perspective on the situation that has caused the Integrity Commission to further refer the Prime Minister's, an aspect of the Prime Minister's statutory declarations, to two other bodies for a further examination. So as I said before the break, Tariq Abdul Majid, he's a chartered accountant, and he joins me now for some informed perspective on what we're seeing here. Tariq, good evening. Welcome to Lead Story. Thank you for coming here.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
All right. I'm tempted to just ask a blanket question as to what do you make of the aspects of the report I highlighted, and of course, which I'm sure you would have read. And I thought, well, there's a better way to put it, but why put it a better way when that is exactly what I want to know? Based on what you have seen of the reported transactions that the Integrity Commission has put into its report, and the concern it says it has, culminating in it saying that, well, there are no tax returns filed for companies where there is earnings movement in the accounts. We want a further look by Tax Administration Jamaica and the FID. I want your perspective on all that.
All right, so it's a good bit to cover, and I'll try my best to ensure that the audience get some clarity on it. One of them, for example, and some persons would generally say, one of the first correction is there's some technicality sometimes in doing filings. So, for example, when you say there's no tax returns versus there's a nil tax returns, it means two different things. What happens? No tax return means that they didn't do anything, nothing was done. The nil return simply means that what they did a filing, but they put zero, pretty much saying that here what? There were no transactions, 000, and then it is filed on time with the regular body. So it's two things. So if no filing was done, there is pretty much a penalty for doing no filing whatsoever. So filings were made. So that's one of the first clarification I would say. That nil return simply means that they did do filings, but what they declared was zero. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Very well.
They declared zero, right? So that's first in terms of the clarification. Now, with regards to the filings, now sometimes to put a perspective sometimes on audit, generally the forensic accountant in this case, usually they do much more, their scope of work or the things that they test is broader than somebody doing a general audit. What that means is audit usually is based on a sample of transactions. So even though we see in the reports say reported earnings 5 million, 20 million, 1 million for each of these entities, the only way you could certify and say that this was reported earnings is if you trace all transactions. So yes, it was 3,600 transactions, but was this 100%? Was this all the transactions, or was it a sample of transactions in each month? So that is important as well, right? So to get it, one of the things off the bat is you can't file a nil return if you did transactions generally. That is not what is supposed to be done. Unfortunately, though, I can tell you that there are people sometimes, and I'm not saying this is the case here, that sometimes when somebody make a loss and they realize that, you know what, I have a little bad juice business, and really and truly I keep borrowing money from my parents because I pay in all of the bills and I realize I make a loss. What that person doesn't just file zero return because they don't want the tax man to say late and charge him penalty of 60,000 and this and that, right? So sometimes when people make losses, they take the easy way out and file a nil return. Now, what is something that would require further? My opinion is that you would require investigation is that if you test these transactions and you are seeing a positive earning, then a nil return would not be aligned with what you're seeing, right? So even if you give somebody a pass, and I will tell you, sometimes people use discretion. If persons made losses, rather than them listing out all the losses, sometimes, even though I would say that is not the ideal thing to do, when losses are made, you might find, because I have clients who sometimes sometimes they might want to do nil return. Then they say, no man, let's go through all the transactions. The right thing to do, you made a loss, you're not going to pay any taxes, let's just show what the loss is because you can bring forward those losses. So that's one of the things I'm going to tell you, that people do nil returns even though they have transactions. So that's another clarification I would like to say, that I've seen that in practice. It's not correct, but I've seen it, especially when they've made a loss. They say, you know what, I already lose money, I'm not going to pay tax. So if I file zero, I'm not going to pay tax. So sometimes they use that simplified approach, right? Now, with this though, seeing these positive earnings, I agree. One perspective is that seeing positive earnings, if this was really all the transactions tested, then you'd have even more confidence that the reality is they made profits, they made positive earnings. However, if it was a sample, we can't run with the report. If it's a sample of the transactions, we cannot run with the report, because then we'd have to look at, was it the majority of the transactions that were tested? Was it 3 months, 4 months, 8 months, 12 months? What about the other months? Did they have major expenditure that was not captured within that examination? So it's very important to look at that. So even though I may say, looking from the face value of the report, you would want to investigate further. However, the scope of the work being done means what was really tested. Is it that they really tested all the transactions? And if they did, then even so, you would get even a greater nod to say more investigation is required, right? So I don't know if you need me to break, because I have a few
because I want to ask you. Catch your breath, gather your thoughts, because here's the thing again.
Yes.
Already in the public domain, people's eyes popped open when they saw 3,800 transactions across 28 bank accounts. Now, I'm not asking you to speak for the Prime Minister, because clearly you're not in that position to so do. You've not been authorized to so do. But I'm just asking you, based on your experience in the field, for business people in this country or a similar sized country, is it an unusual thing? Is it anomalous for them to have multiple bank accounts?
It is not a norm, but you do find a few organizations like that. It's not a norm to have multiple. It's too much to track. It's too much to trace. And even just a quick pointer on that, even in declaring the accounts, realize that he had declared short, a letter was sent, he declared another, and then a letter was sent, he declared another two, and then one more. So that again, generally, in terms of, accountability, it's critical. It's critical as an individual. I'm not speaking as a Prime Minister, but as an individual or somebody doing business, it's critical, because at the end of the day, it's still the same government that will lock you up for fraud.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important to ensure that you know your accounts, you know what you have. It's very important.
So you're saying it's not common, but it's not strange.
Correct. It's not common, but it is not strange.
Very well. All right. The amounts of money that the Integrity Commission says is moving between accounts, people read that and already they start to draw conclusions about why are funds being moved between and among accounts. I ask you, from your experience once again, people have accounts, they're doing business at a high level, and they're moving monies across accounts for various reasons. Is it commonplace, or must there be something wrong for you to be shifting millions across accounts that are under your charge?
All right. So again, there is what we would say, so things that opens the eye, and then what we apply professional skepticism. I mean, we're going with an unbiased mind and decide that, okay, let's see whether or not there is something. Usually when multiple transactions occur across account, it does open the eyes. One of the words we use is that there's potential indicator of mishandling or fraud, but it is not an absolute guarantee. It's not a statement. It's not something absolute to say, yes, definitely there is fraud occurring. definitely there's mismanagement, there's deception. No, there's nothing definite about it. But usually as an auditor, the eyes open wide, and then you investigate further. When you investigate further, you might find that everything is okay, or you might find that there are some anomalies.
So, given that, you're only seized of the details put into the Integrity Commission report, you don't know if there are attendant details that you would need to form a bigger picture. So, what would you say about the further recommendation for an additional probe into these matters, especially given after they were probed for 6 months by an international expert examiner?
No, that's a very good. I mean, I like your recommendation, but there's something that Mr. Tavares, he said that it's something of concern, and you have to look at when it comes to investigation and independence. There's who investigates who does the investigation, who authorizes it, because that's a challenge that I myself saw when I saw the report. It was difficult to say, would Parliament approve the investigation of the Prime Minister? And who determines that an investigation can go to the FID? That's a challenge in terms of governance structure. And I think critically, especially as a nation, that we have to ensure that we have a level of governance where nobody is above the law. Now, in terms of the reporting line, I can comment to say, Mr. Tavares, that he's correct in his statement, but I also had those concerns just from hearing it and the recommendation on who is to approve it. It was questionable in my mind. How will that approval occur? Who will approve it? Who is the majority? Who is the minority? Is it that you need majority of the parliament to approve it? So there is some issue there, and I believe that with regards to the FID and the TAJ, there has to be something within the structure that they can possibly do investigations with independent of the governing body, so that everybody stands accountable, whether you're the Prime Minister, you're a man on the street.
Hear you on that. Tariq Abdul Majid, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for your contribution. Really appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Definitely a pleasure.
Excellent. Good. Well, there's a development, and a very important development, viewers. We understand that the police personnel are outside the house of the Prime Minister on Shenstone Drive in Beverly Hills. The man in charge of news here at CVM, Andre Jebinson, is outside the residence, and he joins us on the phone. Good evening, Andre.
Hi, George. Evening.
Yes. What's happening where you are? Where you are